The East Baton Rouge Parish Library believes that a thriving business community is good for us all. That's why we help entrepreneurs start businesses with tools like Gale Business Builder. Keep commerce rolling by providing access to computers, printers, and free Wi-Fi at 14 branch locations. Get a library card. Grow your business at ebrpl.com/business.
Good morning, and welcome to Strictly Business. I'm your host, Penny Font. This webcast features conversations with Louisiana's most influential CEOs, entrepreneurs, and community leaders, with the goal of providing insights, ideas, and inspiration to help you and your business grow. We want to keep Strictly Business as interactive as possible. So for those joining us live, here's an icebreaker question for you. Submit your vote in the comments, and the results will be posted at the end of the webcast. Strictly Business is brought to you by the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Without their support, this project would not be possible. This month, we have a panel of 3 guests, and we're taking on a topic that is front and center in Baton Rouge: how to attract and retain young people. The Better in BTR initiative, a national campaign by Visit Baton Rouge, the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and East Baton Rouge Parish, created to attract more young professionals to the city, is underway. It's designed to showcase Baton Rouge as a better choice for young workers and bolster regional pride. Our guests this morning are longtime advocates for that. We have with us Jeremy Beyt, co-founder and CCO of creative firm 368, which is developing the Better in BTR campaign; Sabrina Galloway, principal strategist of the Galloway Group, COO and co-founder of Ethics; and Amanda Martin, a successful entrepreneur and CEO of Studyville. Jeremy, Sabrina, Amanda, thank you so much for being with us this morning. First question, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being rock star status, how would you rate Baton Rouge on having improved its appeal to younger generations over, let's say, the past 5 or 10 years? And then just kind of explain your answer. Jeremy, let's start with you.
Yeah, great question. I think I would give us a 6, so slightly above average. I think of examples that come to mind are especially around the mid-city redevelopment effort. That's been a big boon for attracting younger people and retaining students in the area. I know our office is near City Roots, and when we go there, I see a lot of LSU students and Southern students studying in there. So it sort of becomes this middle ground meeting space for young people. And if it works, if it continues to develop, it could really become sort of an anchor destination. So I'd say that's like one of the big successes that come to mind for me.
Great. Sabrina, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, not only just with the mid-city redevelopment, but you can see the construction throughout the city. So as we're continuing to attract new and innovative businesses, and Jeremy talked about their office, they're an amazing anchor company in Baton Rouge. And so as we continue to attract talent in that way, I think that that's definitely an improvement where growing up in Baton Rouge, my mom worked at a plant, which is a huge industry here, and that wasn't my life choice. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a philanthropist, and so that's a different thing for Baton Rouge, but you see that more. You see so many more creatives, so many more entrepreneurs, and as we are cultivating this ecosystem of different types of talent, that attracts young people, where at the end of the day, we still need our traditional jobs. I see like they are still vital to our society, but to understand that Baton Rouge is a place for both and all really attracts talent. And I've definitely seen that boom in the last 5 years.
Great insight. Thank you. Amanda, what's your ranking and why?
Like Jeremy, I gave us a 6. I think what we're doing with the revitalization of the LSU lakes and all the projects that we have going on with our infrastructure, and there are a lot of exciting things happening at our flagship university, LSU, and research, and there's just a lot going on. So I give us a 6 for that. you asked in your questions earlier, and I know we'll touch on the negativity of Baton Rouge, and I think that the messaging that we put out there, it hurts us a lot. I had a friend come to Baton Rouge for Mardi Gras several years ago, and on the interstate, I-12 coming in, there was this giant billboard that said, Baton Rouge has the highest murder rate in the nation, above Chicago. It was like, come for Mardi Gras, stay for the murder. Like it was our welcoming sign. Like before you made it into the city, it was like, get ready, you're coming for the murder rate. So I think we just need to do a better job of promoting all the good qualities of our city, which it's a beautiful day outside right now. Baton Rouge has the most beautiful spring. I'd put it up against just about any city in our country. And I think the messaging is what keeps us down, because I have definitely been to other cities and get a lot of hype, and you go there and you're like, I kind of prefer Baton Rouge.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to take a moment to get some personal perspective from each of you. What made you decide to make Baton Rouge your home, and how has the community here supported your personal and professional dreams and aspirations? Let's start with you, Sabrina.
Well, Baton Rouge is home. So I'm born and raised and bred from Baton Rouge. I spent some time in New Orleans going to school and have traveled a ton, with just the nature of my family dynamic. But Baton Rouge is like the anchor for home, because not only family is so important to me, and having my actual blood family still there and my extended family there makes it a no-brainer. But then also too, just the community and the people. And so no matter where I go, I wear my Baton Rouge flag, very proud, and going home and being able to just collaborate with folks that I went to elementary school with, folks that I met in my adult life. Now my kids are in school, and so I'm meeting up different people that have come to Baton Rouge for different reasons. And so the people make you stay. I think that, being around open-minded people, collaborating that have the same love for the city. And so where everything's not perfect, but if we're all, committed to working together to make it better, then it's why I want to stay, and why it's always going to be the anchor of home. No matter how much I travel, no matter how much I go, it will forever be home and the anchor for my family.
That's wonderful. Amanda, what about you?
Absolutely, the people. You can go anywhere. Baton Rouge has the best people. We are so much fun. Everybody is, paint with a large brush. Genuine, they're involved, they're welcoming. I am personally an introvert, and I dream of being a hermit, but I'm always found by people in the community who care for me and show up at my door. My dad came to visit once, and he was getting ready for bed, and neighbors showed up, and they're like, well, we've got beer. And he said, okay. He said, what kind of neighborhood is this? And I was like, that's all of Baton Rouge. I've lived in other cities that, Baton Rouge tries to emulate, cities like Austin and Nashville, and there's not that welcoming of people. Baton Rouge truly loves its people. And I think that is in a society where technology is isolating people, I think that's something that, we have that other cities do not.
Great points. Jeremy, what about you?
Yeah, I like a project. I know that about myself. And I am from New Iberia, which isn't far away, but it might as well be across the ocean. Because if you're from New Iberia, this is like the big city, and you're sort of raised to think like that's a different place. That's like going to New York. That's how it felt. Moved here for school, and then thought I was going to be out of here. And found my community, found my wife, which actually found my wife much later when I was almost 30. But found my community here, and what I really do like about Baton Rouge is that it is a project, to be honest. Like you've got this sort of, it's a relative dynamic, right? You compare to New Orleans or Lafayette, and there's pros and cons. And Baton Rouge can kind of get lost in the middle, I feel. And we've made it our mission, and I've made it my mission to change that narrative and that perspective, because having been raised in Cajun country, there are great Cajun people here and Cajun traditions here, just like there are there. Having spent a lot of family from New Orleans, spent a lot of time in New Orleans, we have the same sort of festival kind of mindset and great food, but it just gets sort of lost in the shuffle, I think. And what Baton Rouge has that neither of those places have is the right balance of big city sort of amenities. Like, you can go to night market where there's 6,000 to 10,000 people and not really know anybody. You can kind of be anonymous, but you can go to your neighborhood coffee shop and know everybody. And so you get that perfect sort of balance. And I just want to tell that story for Baton Rouge and for our state at large. So what's kept me here is that project of doing that work.
I love that perception. Thank you. Jeremy, I want to continue with you. What's the single most important element that Baton Rouge still needs to achieve to come close to Austin, Dallas, or Houston status in terms of being a magnet for young professionals? I know you've already talked about some of this, but if there's anything more you want to add about, on the flip side, what advantages Baton Rouge has over these other magnets for young professionals?
Yeah, that is a huge question. And I think there are many answers, but if you ask me to surmise it from my point of view, I think we have a branding problem. There are plenty of functional problems in this city and in many cities. I would argue that our sister cities on either side have similar problems, but not the same branding problem. The perception of Baton Rouge is broken internally and externally, and it kind of starts there. And Amanda said it earlier, the discourse has to change in order for that perception to change. So that to me is like a huge opportunity. Austin has great branding. They always have. And that has driven a lot of, in addition to other things, has driven a lot of what's made them successful. Now, what do we have that they don't? We've got culture, like real culture, like historic culture. We've got coastal access in a way that they don't. We've got community in a way that they don't. I really believe that. Like, it's the people at the end of the day is a big part of it. But yeah, so that would be how I think about it is, what if the economic success of Austin happened here? How much different would it feel, when you have these people and these traditions interwoven into that economic boom? How beautiful would that be?
Absolutely. Sabrina, it's been said that one of Baton Rouge's biggest challenges is its own self-perception. We talked about this a little earlier, that older generations in particular don't often have nice things to say about their own community. Do you agree or disagree?
I think just honestly, it goes really hand in hand. I was biting my lip as Jeremy was talking, and as Amanda mentioned earlier, I think perception and vernacular is important to all generations. So I don't think it is biased to any age. I think that when the naysayers are speaking louder than those that have an affinity for the city. And so as we talk about the branding pieces of Baton Rouge, and we talk about all the great things that are happening, we always hear it with the but this or and this versus no. Like, when we're speaking about the affinity that we have for our city, let's talk about the culture. Let's talk about the sports. Let's talk about, the historical context from the civil rights movement to like our great successes in other places. Like, we have such rich history. And if we talk about that and then talk about the projects that we have at LSU Lakes and the innovative things that we have going on too, like, that changes the dynamic. And so I think that whether it's old or young, it's a problem that we as internal Baton Rougeans can fix and change.
Amanda, anything you'd add to that?
I agree. Self-perception of Baton Rouge is 100% a problem. We need to talk about how great it is to raise a family in Baton Rouge. We've got a strong park system, sport, strong faith community. We talk about the crime, but we don't also talk about the safe neighborhoods and all the things that families do here in Baton Rouge. We have great food. We have festivals. no one does the amount of festivals that we do. And I think whatever we can do to promote what we're already doing is going to be very helpful.
There's some big initiatives out there right now trying to address these issues.
Right.
Jeremy, give us an update on Creative Capital and traction there, and how is Assembly Required making a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. Assembly Required is an event that we produce where we bring, community leaders and anyone who wants to be involved in making this place better. We bring them together, and we had a season last year where we had 4 events, and the last event of the year we did a roundtable style discussion, and we said, hey, what are we going to do about it? And we brought everyone together, and we had table hosts who facilitated conversations about how every individual can do something to build community and make the city better. And what I will say is a lot of it is still in the works, so it's sort of a long play. But what we see is you see things like Night Market, which comes out of Laura, who was a table host. You see things like 225 Fest, which is not, I'm not saying Assembly Required created 225 Fest, but it is all, it's all part of the same gumbo of people who are coming together to share ideas and energy to create these moments. You see like social media breakfast bubbling up, which one of the people who started that was actually from Lafayette and transplanted here. He's a friend of mine, Adam Chapman. So all of those people are part of the Assembly Required crew. And what we've done is there's a bunch of stuff in the background happening right now where people are putting together more events, more ideas, a lot of stuff that is yet to come. And, stay tuned for this year because we're about to announce some exciting next steps. But yeah, that's what I would say is I see evidence of that community making the difference every day.
Very cool. Amanda, do you think the Better in BR campaign that launched this spring is on target in its strategy?
As far as the 5% growth for the 25 to 44-year-old demographic, I think it better be. I love that they're taking the initiative and that, someone's got to do this and someone has to have a goal. Is it realistic? I hope so. And I think it's great. I'd rather them be more ambitious and barely miss it than to just, but we've got to do something big, And I love that the Baton Rouge Area Chamber is taking the lead on this. They've had a lot of great enthusiasm behind this campaign and some other campaigns that they have done. And I think we need to rely on our business community. Politicians come and go, and they're motivated in ways that the business community is not. So for those of us who are establishing roots here, let's go do this. So I really appreciate the BRAC campaign.
Sabrina, do you think that 5% growth in the 25 to 44-year-old demo is realistic? Do you think that's doable?
I think that we have to have audacious goals in order to see real change. And so it's as realistic as we put the work behind it. Goals are one thing, but we have to put the work and put the action towards it. And so if collectively we continue to do that and we chip away, we have to start somewhere.
Jeremy, your thoughts on that project?
Yeah, here's what I know. I know that the South has seen the largest net in-migration of young professionals of anywhere in the country over the last 5 years, and Louisiana has fallen short in attracting them relative to Texas, Arkansas, and Mississippi. So we know that the opportunity is there and the goal is achievable just based on the quantitative data. Is it realistic? I would say yes. I too love audacious goals, big goals. It is a big goal. I'll say this, the money, I think they published the total amount's about $1 million over 3 years. Sounds like a lot in the marketing and advertising world. It's really not a lot. It's going to require Baton Rouge to lift this campaign and endorse it. And that looks like sponsorships and partnerships in-kind donations, support, whatever our community can do to propagate this message, will make it successful. But that is a dependency, I think, for this to really succeed and really hit that big goal. How I know it's working is because there are haters coming out everywhere who are doubting us, and that's how I know it's working. Because when you have people getting a visceral reaction to something, and they say that can't be done, that's when I'm like, yes, it can. That it's working because we're getting people responding. Yeah, watch us. So that's how I feel about it.
Some inspiration there.
Right.
Amanda, let's talk about entrepreneurship for a minute. What has been your own experience as an entrepreneur in Baton Rouge? And secondarily to that, do you feel that the community has the right support systems to foster young entrepreneurship?
I do. Baton Rouge is an excellent place to incubate. So I am here, I'm a resident of Baton Rouge and have been for over 20 years. And I started my business, opened in fall of 2020, which was the height of the global pandemic. And I really had an amazing level of support within our community, with the business community, the Business Report, and all of the educational workshops that they do for entrepreneurs and business owners. They have excellent resources. I'm a member of a female entrepreneurs group, Baton Rouge Business Women. Tomorrow we have a retreat where we're hearing from business leaders all over the city. And just the level of support that I got from the community, from my customers who thought I was a franchise, but then when they found out, no, this is a Baton Rouge business, they were more willing to support me. We have the Red Stick Angel Network where they're investing in promising companies. And so that's something I think we could build here, is our venture capital and angel investing for companies that have a lot of promise. We've got Southern University, we've got LSU, we've got Southeastern, we've got BRCC, we've got all of these great educational resources, and we have entrepreneurs who are in our city. So if we can support them, that's going to fuel the entrepreneurial community. I will say that had I launched in a bigger city like New York, I just can't imagine, or Chicago, here I was nurtured, and I feel like if I had launched in a large city, I would have been just eaten alive and forgotten. So there is that, you still have that small town, like, oh, something's new. And the press here, does stories on new businesses. And I just found it a great place to launch a business. So I'm very thankful to the Baton Rouge community for the success I've seen with Studyville.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. Jeremy, how can Baton Rouge better support young entrepreneurs and startups? What are some growth areas for us?
I think the starting point is building better bridges between the universities and the small businesses, or opportunities for funding locally. Like you just mentioned, the Angel Group. There are small business incentives through LED. There's a lot of sort of untapped opportunity, I think, right here in our own city, that the business just haven't been built. And for whatever reason, and we see that ourselves, even recruiting. We've got 30,000 students here, we've got 10,000 students there, and we struggle to have like an efficient, effective sort of recruiting strategy, and a lot of that's on us. But I would love to see the city really invest in building those bridges and making Baton Rouge like a brand for students to invest in, versus separate from the university, because right now they're almost like separate worlds. So that's sort of what comes to mind for me, is just start there, keep the people we have.
I also have friends who are entrepreneurs who are taking advantage of the NILs. We have a lot of promising young athletes here in Baton Rouge, and to link your company with a budding star is a huge advantage that we have here that you wouldn't have in another city. So it's a good way of linking sports and education and entrepreneurship all in one.
Great point. Sabrina, we know that many Baton Rouge natives move away after graduating from college because they sense or they believe that they can find better economic and career opportunities in cities like Atlanta and Houston. What are the most significant barriers to economic development in Baton Rouge that affect young adults, and how can they be overcome?
I think some of the most largest economic barriers are the pay gap. You know, when you move to bigger cities, because the cost of living is more expensive, your salary in one of those bigger cities would not be comparable or competitive here. I think ways in which we've combated is now that we are post COVID, some folks are still working from home and you're able to reside in Baton Rouge and still work somewhere else. But I think that because just the same barrier that the cost of living is higher in those cities, it's a little bit cheaper here as you're trying to think about where to start your family and all of those things that are in type like that go around that, things that are working for us. So I think that as we bridge the gap to show opportunities and like not only opportunities to enter the workforce here, whether it's in those creative spaces or in traditional settings, bridging those gaps, as Jeremy has talked about, taking advantage of the other intangible things that make Baton Rouge feel small, but also big. And so I think that we have to kind of hit them one by one. And it's going to be different for different people. And I think that's the best part about the melting pot of Baton Rouge is saying that it isn't a one size fit all, and we don't want it to be that way, but find your niche of why you want to be here and what makes and drives you.
So true. Amanda, what can Baton Rouge learn from the workforce development strategies in cities like Dallas and Houston, especially in attracting and retaining young talent in key industries or sectors?
I think quality of life initiatives are huge. So I want to be very careful. And I think, as we think about growth and as we're launching these campaigns and we have the energy to grow Baton Rouge and attract young people, that we're doing it in a smart way. I think most of the people here in Baton Rouge and who would move to Baton Rouge are not looking to replicate a Dallas and all of the problems that come with a Dallas. Travel, commute time, for one. We think traffic in Baton Rouge is bad already. So we don't necessarily want to be a Dallas, but we do want to learn from their communities that have really fostered their quality of life, walkability within the city. I would, rather than looking at Dallas and Houston and Atlanta, I'd rather look at a place like Fayetteville, Arkansas, where they have a train that runs through the city. Sounds like Baton Rouge, and they put a greenway space alongside the train, and they have 35 miles of bike paths from Fayetteville to Bentonville. The city of, I think it was city of Bentonville, the mayor during COVID offered incentives to young professionals to move to Bentonville and said, we'll give you a bike and we'll give you a membership to all the museums. Well, how hard is that? I mean, you're going to make that up in tax revenue once they move to you. And if you're 24 and you're like, hey, I get a bike, and they have a bike path, that sounds great. Along the bike path, they've got yoga studios, juice bars, coffee shops, breweries, bars. We can do all of that. You go along our train tracks and there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's just dead space. We could do so much more with what we already have. And so let Baton Rouge be Baton Rouge. I don't want Baton Rouge to be Dallas. I just don't. But I think finding a similar city and doable projects. We don't need the skyscrapers. We have a riverfront. I mean, we should have a riverfront. We have a river, but there's nothing on it. So Dallas does not have the Mississippi. We do. We have the festivals. We've got the infrastructure for the riverfront. Like let's do something there. So I would rather look introspectively, say, what are our assets and how can we make Baton Rouge
I think that's I literally People, you move to big cities because that's what attracts you there. Like, you come to Baton Rouge because you understand and you want that sense of community. And if you don't know about it, like, that's what you're missing out on. So it's taking the quality of life, the amenities, and how do we, continue to foster places for, amenities that that the younger generation likes, and figuring out how to make it easily accessible and cut down their barrier entries.
Yeah, and we've got to figure out a way to move past politics and let the business community lead on projects like this. Like, I love what the Baton Rouge Area Foundation is doing. We need to do it faster, and we've got to get rid of all the red tape that is stymieing innovation.
I love that perspective. Jeremy, with cities like Austin and Houston becoming hubs for technology and innovation, attracting a dynamic young workforce, what steps should Baton Rouge take to cultivate their own environment that's conducive to tech startups and innovative enterprises?
Yeah, I mean, I want to retweet a lot of what Amanda and Sabrina just said. Obviously, working with the young people that we already have here in universities, and then taking pages. I agree, we need to quit looking at the majors. The Houstons and the Austins are no longer comparables. The Chattanoogas, the Fayettevilles, the Lexingtons are the comparables. And look at how they're doing it. Chattanooga branded itself Gig City because it had fiber internet. That is not revolutionary, but it's a great marketing strategy. And what it did is that you can look at local companies here who have opened branches in Chattanooga because they wanted to be part of this gig, sort of tech-centric downtown development initiative. If you dig into it, it's really not anything we couldn't do ourselves, but it's about a concerted effort in that direction. We have to start prioritizing a diversified economy. And I'm not just talking about diversification of the sectors we're already in, but true diversification. Not like renewable energy is awesome and it's a huge opportunity for us, maybe the biggest one. But what about technology and all of these other things, right? And another thing that I personally think that we should do, and I can't for the life of me understand why we don't, but just be creative and have fun. Be a place that is creative and fun. That is what Louisiana is all. If there's anything we're good at, it's that. And we know the Surgeon General just declared the loneliness epidemic one of the greatest threats to young people in the United States. What are we going to do about it? We're a community-centric culture. People in tech are tired of every moment in their life being a networking opportunity. They want something real. They want something of substance. And you can see in the data that they are migrating to mid-sized cities to try to find community, a place to plant roots. We have to start with that quality of life, community angle. Get creative, have some fun, throw some Mardi Gras lights on the bridge, create a river district, plant cypress trees everywhere. I don't know. Just have some fun and then tell people about it. And I really think it starts there, in addition to some smart incentives like gig internet and things like that. That's my rant, sorry.
I love that rant. Sabrina, based on your experiences, what are the benefits of having young adults actively involved in philanthropy and community development projects? And how can young professionals in Baton Rouge be encouraged to take on more leadership roles within the community?
I think that philanthropy is so key, giving back. My mother always taught me too much is given, much is required. And so I think that as we are talking about all of these great things and wanting to do, there's a generation that is now. So like as much as I want to hold on to my youthfulness, which I still am, there's a generation of now. And so service is the best way to introduce them to anything. And so through our foundation specifically, mentored through our mentorship programs, experience and exposures, when you show kids the possibilities of what they can be, the sights are limitless. And so I think that as we encourage young people to get involved, whether it's through our philanthropy, through a ton of different organizations throughout the city, you get fresh ideas, you get their energy, you get their buddingness as they're learning from you. This is a two-way street. As you're teaching them, what you know, and they're we're all serving, it's a benefit of both. You get innovative ideas, freshness. You import as much wisdom and as that you can import on them. But it's a two-way street, and I think that philanthropy is a key. It is bipartisan, and through collaboration and all of those different things. But service is one of those things that we can all come together on.
Amanda, what can we do to ensure that young adults have a voice in local government and decision-making process in Baton Rouge to affect the change that, the kind of change that we're talking about that's necessary?
So we already have a couple of groups. The Change Makers group that is run by Adonica Duggins with Baton Rouge Student Alliance has been very successful in implementing new school board leadership. So I don't know if you've paid attention to the EBR school boards, but we've got some younger members, and younger members are running in the next cycle. So that's really exciting. And our new leadership within the school board is paying attention to things like budgets. Fascinating, right? So obviously Change Makers is focused on education. So what's another problem we can tackle within Baton Rouge where we can take young leaders and say, like, here's the problem, and here's the history of why it's a problem, and here's what other people are doing to mitigate this problem across the country, and here's how you can be involved. So I imagine something with crime would be very intriguing for a lot of business professionals who want to help. Safe BR is a new initiative that has a bunch of different leaders. If they started a class for young professionals, I think that would be very successful. And look, I know young professionals, I certainly was this way and still am, want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. So there is this desire to contribute and be a part of something bigger. And life gets distracting with jobs and kids and just everyday life. And so these organizations who are helping to train the next generation and make our city better, let's do more. So.
Yeah.
Jeremy, any initiatives that you think have been successful as well, or that you would suggest to cultivate a new generation of community leaders in Baton Rouge?
I think of Assembly Required. I don't want to sound like I'm just plugging the event, but that has been for me the most, it's given me the most hope for the future, because I do meet so many young people who are heavily motivated. And I'm actually in a group text with a bunch of aspiring civic leaders. I don't know why they put me in the group text, but they're awesome. They're at all the events. They're really trying to find their way into sort of the system and how they can affect it. So it gives me a lot of hope. But initiatives, if you ask me, more community driven or private enterprise driven events, gathering places, opportunities to have discussions about our city, and give people a chance to have voice and a chance to understand that there is indeed a strong appetite for young people to come in and help change our future. Because if you just read the news, it can be discouraging, and so get on the ground level. That's what I would say. And businesses can create those opportunities.
Absolutely. Let's talk transportation and infrastructure a little bit. We touched on this somewhat earlier, but how can Baton Rouge address its own infrastructure challenges to make the city more appealing and accessible for young adults, young professionals? Let's start with you, Sabrina.
I think the mayor's initiative with Move BR has been a start, and she's continuing to do it. I'm excited to see what's like all of the projects that are coming into action through that, the synchronization of lights and all of the other pieces. The project's big, so it's nice that it's continuing to go and continuing to see movement. Because when we talk about infrastructure, it's not going to happen today. It's hard to happen tomorrow. But when you see someone working towards a project and you can see the fruits of the labor. It's exciting to it's exciting to see. We talked about Mid City and the bike paths there. Like, I think that all of those different things, that as we create the work life play communities and make it easily accessible, that's how you chip away at it.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, what's
I would just like to brag a little bit about our transportation for a second. You know, we're talking about how we need to be a little bit more positive about Baton Rouge, so I have very positivity. I have recently fallen in love with the Baton Rouge airport because
Oh,
I fly all over the place. I've been flying a lot to Atlanta and Houston, and those airports are nightmares. I got lost in the Atlanta airport. I ended up in a terminal with foreign airlines, and I walked, 7 miles, ran a 5K, took 7 trains, and went through 4 parking garages and couldn't find my way home. Now, when I land in Baton Rouge, I can get to the gate, get to my car, be home in my pajamas before I can make it out of the C terminal in Atlanta. So I think
fly
that,
BTR, I cannot agree more. So book your flight
yeah.
to DC so we can keep it.
Yeah. Now we don't go many places, but if you're going to like one of 5 cities, we got it. The TSA pre-check line has 2 people in it. The regular line has 4 people in it.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to brag too much about it because I don't want the secret to get out too much, because it is a dream come true to fly in and out of there. And with the schedules, I can be out of Baton Rouge. I can leave my kids in the morning, be in Atlanta by 8:30 a.m. and be back in Baton Rouge at night to kiss them goodnight. So that is a piece of our infrastructure, transportation sector that is really, really appealing, I think.
very good point. Let's talk about what strategies we might look at or suggest to foster a more connected and supportive community for young adults. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on that?
Oof. What comes to mind for me is third places, which is sort of a broad answer, but creating meeting spaces that aren't necessarily bars for people to hang out. I think a lot of people meet here locally at churches or at like bars and restaurants, and there's sort of a crowd that I've recently become aware of that is really centered on arts and culture. But I've been here a long time and I didn't even know about it. So it's, I think, partly the city investing in communication strategies to make people aware of the resources already available. And then secondly, continuing to invest in meeting spaces that are sort of neutral ground. And we have Breck, to me, is an incredible system. It's one of the best. And they could make small tweaks to some of their parks and facilities to just create like meeting spaces, like add great Wi-Fi and great air conditioning to some of the parks where people can go and have meetings and whatever, like brainstorms. And that alone could be, I think, one way to do it. From my perspective.
Amanda?
I would counter and say that we have a very connected and supportive community for young adults. What we need is to have our city leaders go out and promote that and bring in the business and bring in, like, let's keep what we have. We do really well. That's something that we're great at. We're great at community. That's been a theme over and over in this podcast. And so how do we market that, advertise that? How do we get leaders to go and say, you need to come to Baton Rouge because this is a great place for your family to be. This is a fun place. You will not run out of things to do. You will have fun in Baton Rouge. And I think that's something that our business community and our city leaders could help us promote.
Absolutely.
I definitely think it's a collaborative effort. So, because at the end of the day, where our business community, you got to run your business in order to be successful, and our city leaders have to lead the city in order for us to, to live. I think that is where that connection can come in a collaborative way, where we both bring different perspectives. And so I think that if we find not better, but we find other ways to innovate around those specific topics, I think we can see some true gains. And everyone operating in their zone of genius, I think that that's how we can really, really see. Because I think a lot of times, too, to both of your points, that there are great things, but a lot of things in the city are hidden gems where we're talking about isolated pockets. And so how do we get these pockets to integrate? And so that way it's like I can, whether I want to meet at my church or another church, or where we're meeting at neutral ground and neutral spaces, like what are better ways to get everyone talking, so then that way the spectrum can still be wide and you pick and choose what's the best fit for you.
Very good point. As we close, what would each of you identify as one thing our viewers can do for their part to help Baton Rouge attract and retain more young talent? Sabrina, let's start with you.
Wow, that's a big one. I think we all have an earnest of changing our everyday vernacular, whether it's our conversation at our family dinner table, at our family gathering, whether it's in the coffee line, at French Truck, or wherever you grab your coffee. Like if we start to change our everyday vernacular about the city and speaking positively about it, both to our friends and then to external visitors, I think that starts to develop the change slowly. I think another thing is support, whether it's someone you know or someone you don't know, whether it's an event that you have no idea about, like grab a friend and go and continue to support everything that's going on in the city. I think that is how we keep the lifeblood going, because by going to a different event, whether you're going to an exhibit at the Arts Council or you're going to something in South Baton Rouge or North Baton Rouge, you're checking out a youth sports team, that kind of support, like my mom always said, people makes a party. So if we continue to support each other, whether it's the things that we like to do or not, trying something different, that is how we continue to learn, step out of our comfort zone, and foster real connectivity.
I love it. Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm going to give a very specific tactical request to the world. Go on Reddit. If you don't know what Reddit is, Google it. Go to Reddit, Baton Rouge subreddit, and promote positive discourse. I'm on there. I'm fighting a battle, y'all. Me and a small group of people are over there. Every week someone posts, hey, I have job opportunities in Baton Rouge, Atlanta, here, there, and we're trying to decide. And inevitably the first comment is like, don't go to Baton Rouge. You know, there are trolls. We have to fight the trolls. We can do it together. So I would ask everyone to go in there and tell a good story about Baton Rouge and change the discourse, because young professionals are using that community to understand the city. That's where they're going. So it just takes us going in there and changing the conversation.
Dusting off my Twitter fingers.
Let's go. Keyboard warriors unite.
That's a great invitation, Jeremy. Amanda, what are your thoughts?
I knew we were all going to have the same answer, which is that we just need to promote Baton Rouge in a positive light in all of our interactions on social media, conversations, anywhere. And when we hear negativity, I heard it the other day, and someone was complaining, how much they hate Baton Rouge. And it's like, but why? Education and crime. Okay, well, name me a city where education and crime isn't an issue. Are you going to that utopia? Like, please let us know where it is. We have great housing. We have a great housing market. Housing is cheaper here. It's beautiful weather most of the time. We've got great sports. We've got incredible opportunities with our universities and a supportive entrepreneurial climate, great faith community. So I would just encourage, even if you only have like one positive thing to say, like we have great sushi. I really love the sushi. You can go to Hawaii. There's not better sushi in Hawaii. It's good in Baton Rouge. I don't know why. But say one positive thing about Baton Rouge. And when someone, talks negatively about our city, ask them why. Why?
Y'all have been so amazing. One last thing before we go. Our viewers love recommended reads. Can I get one from each of you with just like one quick sentence describing the impact it has had on you personally or professionally? Let's start with Amanda.
Okay, so I have a lot. Anything by Cal Newport. I love deep work just as an entrepreneur. It really helped me schedule. I'm a giving person, and so I will meet with you. But scheduling time and blocking that on my calendar for deep work, and my whole Studyville staff see that, so they know that Amanda's really trying to focus, so let's not bother her with that. But I also recently started with Start with Why, which is a differentiator in businesses for why you do what you do. And for Studyville, that's huge, because our why is the students, and helping the next generation and increasing, making sure America has an educated workforce for the next generation. So we have a great why, and I'm really loving that book right now.
So important. Thank you. Jeremy?
Yeah, I'll say Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. It's his latest autobiography, and one quick takeaway, he says, when, in life, be less impressed and more involved. And what he means is, like, quit sitting on the sidelines and get involved. And that just struck me, and I wrote that down, and it's been a great reminder for me to, do something about it, whatever it is.
Very relevant to our conversation here.
Yeah.
And Sabrina?
Mine would be my current read. I'm reading it for the second time, B 2.0, Beyond Entrepreneurship by Jim Collins. And the biggest thing is that I think that he teaches, whether you feel as if you're an entrepreneur or not, like understanding your circumstances in your company, whether it's yours or you're trying to move up, and really understanding like the purpose within there and how to work more effectively. And I think that's where I am in life, regardless of if it's all the work that I do. I'm really, really trying to become more effective. Like he talks about how we are so accustomed to this culture of like, I have to work 80 to 90 hours a week, but really if we're more efficient with our 40, like you can understand how that transforms your productivity. And so understanding that it's not always the longest amount of hours, but how am I understanding how to prioritize in order to execute? And that's where we see true growth in leaders.
Awesome. Jeremy, Sabrina, Amanda, thank you so much for making the time to join us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's been
Penny.
a great conversation. And thanks also to our viewers for joining us, as well as our sponsor, the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Please join us again for the May 15th episode of Strictly Business. On behalf of our show's director, Tim Coles, and myself, enjoy and make your day a great one.